Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Lorenzo. I'm the chief judge to this debate, along with the other two panelists, Emanuela Montini and Franco Marini. I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. I'm Emanuela Montini, and I'm a judge, one of the judges.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Franco, and I will be one of the judges for this debate.
Okay, thank you. May I ask the government team to present themselves?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anna De Marco, and I will be the first speaker of the proposition team.
Good evening, I'm Alesia Maria Tamas, and I will be the second speaker of proposition team.
Good evening, I'm Bianca Dell'Agnola, and I will be the third speaker for proposition team.
Okay, among you, who is going to take the reply for proposition?
I will take the reply.
Thank you. May I now ask the opposition team to present themselves?
Good evening, I'm Emma Patriarca, and I'll be the first speaker of the opposition side.
Good evening, I'm Rebecca Gomiro, and I will be the second speaker of the opposition side.
And again, me, Emma Patriarca, I will be the third speaker of the opposition side.
Okay, and so there will be an Ironman, I think, and Rebecca, you are taking the reply for opposition?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then if the two teams are ready, I hope you already know that tonight we're debating on this house would require all foods already on the market to undergo the European safety assessment currently mandated for novel foods. With an Infoslide saying that novel foods refers to foods introduced in Europe from May 15th, 1997, whose marketing is currently regulated by Regulation 2283 of 2015. So if the two teams are ready to debate, I'll ask you to take the time shift for yourself, and after each of the ending of each speech, I will take the official time so that the other judges can put them on paper for themselves. So if Anna is ready, I'll let you start with the debate. Good luck.
Okay. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay. Good evening, dear judges, fellow debaters. Here we are discussing the motion this House would require all foods already on the market to undergo the European safety assessment currently mandated for novel foods. I'm Anna De Marco, and I am the first speaker of proposition team. I will present, what is our status quo and what the motion says. And then I will present the first two arguments of our lines. And our line is followed by the following arguments. The first one, the benefit for consumers. Yesterday foods might not pass the controls of tomorrow. And then, last but not least, safer means more profit. So let's start with a definition for novel food. They define them as any food not significantly consumed in the European Union before May 15, 1997, including those foods from new sources like insects and algae, or produced by new processes. So we had to clarify what is the difference between also non-novel foods, which are foods that are already established as safe in the European market. And then we have the EFSA, which is the European Food Safety Authority, which plays a crucial part for market authorization of products, aiming for a high level of safety before all the food items become available. So here is the status quo of today. The 79% of EU citizens trust the regulation that keep food safe. However, the biggest risk remains misleading health claims. In fact, if a food makes a health claim that hasn't been scientifically sustained by the EFSA, consumers may rely on it for medical reasons, potentially ignoring the actual needs of medical treatments. So, in other words, people aren't actively aware of what are the eating and consuming habits they have to take. And most of them, they don't know what is behind the regulation. So we want to prove, our aims are ensure consumer safety, preserve European food sector market, and also make science evolve. And with this, I introduce the first argument, which is a benefit for consumers. So the free movement of safe and wholesome food is an essential aspect of the internal market and contributes significantly to the health of citizens. In other words, it is our right to control and invest on, the current food assessment, because this is a win-win situation for consumers, because firstly, they know what they eat, so they gain more awareness and confidence. And then knowing what to eat is a human right. So do we want to deprive our consumers of this right? No, we clearly don't. So everyone has the right of recognize what he or she eats. And then this will also implement the knowledge about food, because EFSA focuses on 4 criteria of evaluating food, which are the hazard identification, so evaluating and describing the potential human health risks from hazards in food. And then we also have one of the most important, characterization of food, which involves analyzing its properties. So publishing more contents about the food characterization will improve the explanation of food properties and also implement the food education among consumers, which is a win-win situation also from a cultural point of view. And then we have also exposure assessment, the third criteria, which is a process of evaluating the amount of contaminants or harmful substances that a person is likely to ingest. So the processing of the exposure assessment will also help with the evolution of science. So that is, and then we have the last criteria, which is the risk characterization, which is the final step of the food EFSA assessment. This risk characterization estimates the probability and the severity of harm in the food hazard. So it integrates the result of the preceding steps. So we are capable of telling the real harm of assessed food, which is obviously the point that interests us the most. So here we are with our first argument. Then we have the second one, which is yesterday foods might not pass the controls of tomorrow. So if we think about it, every food we eat today has been checked in previous time, okay, to verify its composition and if it's harmful for the human organism. So this is our world today. Science is evolving, studies are improving, and techniques of control and singular studies, of course, are progressing. So today's science basically is different from the previous century one. And EFSA Plus was instituted in 2002. So not all the novel foods were checked by this authority. And as we remind in the status quo, the EFSA controls are crucial. And then let me bring up an example about the Coca-Cola brand. They extract two important ingredients, which are the cocoa, which was a plant from cocaine, which is the drug from which is extracted, and also cola, which is an extract of alcohol. It was assessed in the first years of the 19th century, of the 20th century, that the cocoa, was lethal. So this process wasn't done immediately. So because there weren't regular controls, and this is an important example of why yesterday's foods might not pass the control of tomorrow. So this is our line. This is our first argumentation. And with this, I end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Your speech was of 8 minutes and 17 seconds. I may now give the floor to the first speaker of the opposition, Emma.
May I ask one thing? Can you copy? Can you copy on the chat the motion, please? Thank you so much.
Just give me a second. Here it is.
Thank you.
Okay, if my fellow judges are okay with it, I will go on with the debate if the first speaker of the opposition is ready.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1, go. Good evening, I am Emma Patriarca and I'm the first speaker of the opposition side. Before starting to talk about the opposition status quo and team line, I want to start confuting what the first speaker of the proposition side said. The proposition confuses safety assessment with education. A novel food file is almost a 1,000-page toxicological report, and it doesn't help a customer, a consumer, choose a healthy snack over another. We already have mandatory labeling for that. Using scientific bottleneck to solve a lack of awareness is like demanding a full engineering audit of a bicycle just to teach someone how to ride that bicycle. Also, proposition side claim that it's our right to reassess everything. I argue that that is a right to have for affordable food. Forcing a local bakery to pay for a novel food assessment for our traditional sourdough or normal bread doesn't protect the consumer. It just empties their pockets and the pockets of small societies. We don't need to rediscover that bread is safe. We need to ensure that the flour isn't contaminated, which is what our current expectations do. Also, the proposition said that this new novel food assessment can improve science. In our opinion, it actually blinds science. If we bury the EFSA under millions of different applications for for simple foods, simple and already known foods like apples or cheese, the EFSA will not have time to study actual emerging threats. After computing this, what the proposition said, I will analyze the status quo in the opposition side opinion. Before we even talk about the solution we want to propose, we need to be honest about the world we are debating in, something the proposition has kind of failed to do so far. So let's start by analyzing what is the status quo. Europe already runs one of the safest and most tightly controlled food system of the entire planet. Every single product that is legally sold in the European Union is subject to strict and mandatory rules on contaminants, hygiene, additives, pesticides, allergens, and processing methods. These are not optional guidelines. They are enforced through continuous testing, complete traceability of the supply chain, and the evidence that can tell us how the supply chain is actually working like it's supposed to work. On top of that, member states... Yes?
Can you make an example of these like checks they make?
Okay, so different checks are made by societies like EFSA or RESFF that are different systems that can withdraw dangerous food within hours across different states of the European Union. And like I will say later on the team line, we have concrete examples of how this society can actually test food in different ways, and I will explain how testing these foods in some type of ways are helpful, but I will say that later on. Like I was saying, also the European safety assessment that we have today is not based on guesswork or tradition. It's based on constant surveillance, proportionate controls, and also real-time intervention. We are comparing functioning and flexible, but also risk-based safety framework with a proposal that forces billions of already regulated products into a procedure that is created, that is designed for high uncertainty food, a procedure that the EFSA cannot scale, companies cannot actually afford, and consumers cannot endure in the long time. To evaluate this proposal properly, we also need to understand where food risks actually originate. And in this case, the evidence is really consistent. According to the EFSA and the ACDC, over 80% of food safety incidents in Europe occur not because a food was chemically unsafe at the moment of the authorization, but because something went wrong later in the supply chain. That means that the vast majority of risks about food arise from operational failures. Concrete examples that make this clear are listeria in soft cheese that almost always come from inadequate sanitation, salmonella in eggs that comes from infected hens, Escherichia coli in vegetables that originate from contaminated water used for irrigation, and also the fipronil egg crisis that resulted from use of illegal pesticide. In the use of illegal pesticide. In each of these cases, the risk did not exist in the moment the food entered the market. It emerged later through behavior, hygiene, or even environmental factors. A novel food style pre-market assessment evaluates what the food is and not what happens to it during time. This system, for example, cannot detect whether a factory will maintain correct sanitation protocols, whether water sources that are used, for example, for irrigation will become contaminated during time, whether temperature controls will fail during transport of food, and whether pesticide will be applied improperly. These risks are dynamic, they are context-dependent and tied to operation practices, exactly the kind of risks that no pre-market evaluation can actually anticipate, like the novel food one. This leads us to a second equally important concern, that is false security. When consumers and regulators are told that every food that has passed this extensive scientific assessment is safe, there is a real danger in assuming that this assessment can cover all kinds of risks. But like I said before, pre-market tests do not monitor hygiene, do not detect contamination in the long time, and do not address productive errors. False security is also dangerous because it shifts attention away from the areas where vigilance is actually needed, like water controls, microbiological testing, and monitoring of transport and storage conditions. None of these are strengthened by extending novel food assessment to all kinds of foods. So the conclusion is very clear. Novel food style assessment address a very specific category of risk, that is chemical uncertainty in food with no consumption history, but they do not address the operational failures that cause the overwhelming majority of real foodborne outbreaks. And relying on them as they solved all the problems about food risks is misleading, because it also encouraged confidence in a tool that's simply not designed to detect certain risks that most often harm consumers. And with that, I end my speech.
Thank you. Your speech was of 8 minutes and 13 seconds. I may now leave the floor to the second speaker of the government team, Alessia, if you're okay.
So my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Hi, dear judges. Hi, fellow debaters. I'm Alessia, and I'm the second speaker of Proposition Team. So first of all, I would like to rebut what the first speaker of Proposition Team said. Well, you said that it's something about education and not about safety assessment. Well, not all people can afford to be educated. Not all people are educated. When we go to a supermarket, we have to be sure that all the products that we find are safe. We have this right. We have the right to know that we're eating safe food. We have the right to find only safe food at the supermarket. Then you said that it would be a waste of money, that small businesses will lose money. And I will prove that this is wrong with my third argument, because industries and small businesses will gain money from this. And I will make you a question. Are money more important than public health? So then we have already done this in 2015, and we're still here. We managed it, and there were only benefits. It wasn't a waste of time or a waste of money. You said that 80% of people doesn't risk anything, but you don't care about that 20%.
QI.
Yeah.
Talking about the education thing, are you aware that products already carry mandatory labels that explain like nutritional values or the safety information about the product?
Yeah, but not all people can access to these informations. Let's think about our grandmas, for example. They don't know how to use their phone. They don't know all these things. They're not so updated, and they have the right to go to the supermarket and buy something safe. And as I understood, you don't care about the 20% of people that risk their life because of unsafe food. But now I would like to start with my third argument. Safer means more profit. Requiring all foods already on the market to undergo the European safety assessment currently mandated for novel foods would not only improve public health outcomes, but also significantly strengthen the economic performance of the food industry. Too often, safety regulations are framed as obstacles to growth or unnecessary financial burdens. However, this view is short-sighted. In reality, safety and profitability are not opposing goals. On the contrary, they are deeply interconnected, and strong safety standards form the foundation of long-term economic success. First and foremost, consumer trust is one of the most valuable and fragile assets in the food market. Unlike many other industries, food directly affects people's health and well-being on a daily basis. Consumers therefore expect a high level of protection and transparency. When people know that all food, whether introduced before or after 1997, have been assessed under the same rigorous European safety standards, they feel reassured. This reassurance directly influences purchasing decisions. Confident consumers are more likely to buy regularly, remain loyal to brands, and pay for products they perceive as safe and reliable. In contrast, when safety is uncertain, consumers hesitate. Even a single food safety scandal can have devastating consequences. History has shown that incidents involving unsafe or insufficiently tested foods can destroy brand reputations overnight. Companies may be forced into costly product recalls, face legal action, and suffer sharp declines in sales. In many cases, trust is never fully restored. From an economic perspective, preventive safety assessments are far more cost-effective than dealing with the aftermath of a crisis. Investing upfront in safety protects not only consumers, but also companies' financial stability. Beyond trust, safety assessments provide consumers with certainty at the point of purchase. When people are sure that the food they're buying has been scientifically evaluated and approved under EU regulations, they can make decisions without fear or doubt. This certainty reduces avoidance of certain products, limits panic driven by misinformation, and encourages consistent consumption patterns. For businesses, predictable consumers' behavior is extremely valuable. It stabilizes demand, reduces volatility in sales, and allows companies to plan production, investment, and expansion with greater confidence. In this way, consumer certainty becomes a direct driver of profit. Secondly, harmonized safety regulations create fairer competition across the food market. Under the current system, novel foods introduced after May 15, 1997 must undergo strict and often expensive safety assessments, while other foods may remain on the market without equivalent scrutiny simply because they predate the regulation. This creates an uneven playing field. Companies that innovate or introduce new products face higher barriers, while others benefit from regulatory loopholes rather than superior safety or quality. By requiring all foods on the market to meet the same safety standards, competition would be based on merit rather than timing. Responsible companies that invest in safe production methods would not longer be undercut by less regulated alternatives. This encourages innovation focused on quality, transparency, and consumer well-being rather than cost-cutting at the expense of safety. Over time, higher standards across the industry lead to greater efficiency, stronger brands, and more sustainable profits. Furthermore, extending safety assessments reduces systemic economic risk. Food-related illnesses place have a heavy burden on healthcare systems and reduce workforce productivity. When people become sick due to unsafe food, societies pay the price through medical costs, lost working hours, and long-term health consequences. A safer food supply contributes to a healthier population, which in turn supports a stronger and more productive economy. From this broader perspective, food safety regulation is not merely a business issue, but an investment in economic resilience. So, it is always a win, because if we prove that that food is safe, consumers will trust that brand, will buy more, and that industry will gain more money. But even if we prove that that food is unsafe, it's not safe, it will be a win too, because we will be sure that we don't have to buy that food. We won't find that food in supermarkets. We will be sure that we're eating safe food and we're not risking our health because someone doesn't want to spend money. But public health is more important than time. We also faced it in 2015, and we can face it now too, because we innovate, we upgraded our senses innovated, and so it will be a win for everyone, for industries and for public health too. Thank you very much. My speech ends here.
Thank you. Your speech was of 8 minutes and 9 seconds. I may now leave the floor to the second speaker of the opposition team, Rebecca. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My speech starts from 3, 2, 1. Good evening, judges. Hello, debaters. I'm Rebecca Gomiro of the opposition side. Today, my role is to oppose to the proposition plan, which I will say is economically and logistically impossible. Moreover, I will rebut the foundation of their case, showing why their model not only fails but actually reduces food safety. Now I'm gonna oppose from something they said. They said that more control, more safety means more profit. But if our controls aren't on the real source of our issue, we can affirm that is safer, and we can affirm it is a profit. Indeed, as our first speaker said, the control EFSA and the WHO express that more risks on food doesn't come from food itself, but from the production and the factory hygiene and contamination of bacteria. So what I'm saying is that proposition is trying to insist on a topic which isn't the real source of our risks. And indeed, I will affirm that their model is an investment, because an investment happens when benefits overgoes cost. But here the costs are enormous. Instead, the benefits are only fewer. Indeed, when we talk about extending the novel food assessment to everything, to every food, we have far beyond the consequences, moreover than moreover than safety, than an increase of safety. Indeed, the consequences are also economically, logistically, culturally, and even institutionally. Logistically, because we can say that the EFSAs is trying to still now is developing some assessment and trying to have controls and checks on foods, which are on a long scale of time. Indeed, our data says that 292 products take like 2 years and a half to be checked completely. So what I'm saying is that today foods are there are many large quantity of food on the market annually, and they have many different variations, so we can't use our assessment on these foods because it will take a lot of time, and we don't have it because if a food from the EFSA assessment, if a food is has to undergo some controls, it can be sold on the market. So it
POI.
yes.
Okay, so instead of thinking about time, what are your solution?
Our solution is not proposing new assessment on everything on every food, because traditional foods have we have eaten them for decades, and they haven't show systemic issues, and moreover. What we are saying is that the issue isn't on the food itself, but on the production of the food, on the supply chain where the food are produced. So what we are saying is that we can't focus our resources to something that isn't what we are trying to solve, because
POI.
yes.
So are you accepting the thing that a lot of people die because you don't want to waste time and money?
We are not talking about money or people that will die, because if we imagine a world where novel food assessment is universally spread on every food, we will have to invest a lot of money on every food, and many food will have to take away from the shelves, so people could will want to find some foods, and this would make them have a high cost if there are less foods, and many traditional food there wouldn't be for a lot of time. Moreover, what I'm saying is that these foods doesn't need a control on there itself, but on the procedures, and now the controls are on the procedures. EFTA is doing that, and what we are saying is that if in a universal in a world where novel food assessment is spread to every food, all the cost, all the money.
POI.
Can I finish what I'm saying? Okay. All the foods and all the money that we need, that were used for controls in procedure, hygiene factory, and microbiological testings, were had will be used to control something, to control foods which don't really have to be controlled, because they are traditional and they don't have spread the systemic issues. So we are we are using our resources for something that isn't solving the problem. Can I, if you want, you can tell me the POI.
I think I clearly read that the motion focuses on Europe. It doesn't imagine a universal world.
I mean universal, meaning that it is spread on every food. Universal in sense of food, every product, not the word universal. I don't know if you understand. Now I'm continuing my speech. I will say also that small companies had to undergo difficult situations, because if we use novel food assessment to have a product, small companies which doesn't produce like a multinational only two products, but they produce dozens with different changes and recipes. They will have to change. They will need a lot of money to undergo these tests, and so their choice will be to to go away from the market and leave the place to multinationals with selling by selling only two products can give only less choose to people, and also increase costs. And our aim is to say that novel food assessment isn't made for every food, because there are foods are safe also now, but the problem is that in the production, and so proposition is focusing on not on the real source of the problem. And with this, I finish my speech.
Thank you, Rebecca. Your speech was of 9 minutes and 27 seconds. Hoping that we are all ready to go along with the debate, I can give the floor to the third speaker of the government team. Are you ready?
Yes, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, judges, fellow debaters. I am the third speaker of the proposition team, and I will rebut some things that have been said during this debate. First of all, opposition team is reiterating that the real issue lies with post-production risks. And that is not false. That is true. There are many post-production risks, but we also need to consider the pre-production new arising risks. We live in a rapidly changing world, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that we live in a world that changes constantly, especially because of the new risks posed by climate change. For example, we can see that soil degradation, or for example, climate disasters, they can absolutely impact the chemical composition of food, even staple foods. Think, for example, of warmer temperatures that favor the growth of mycotoxin producing fungi like aflatoxin in wheat. Wheat is a food that has historically been deemed safe. We think we eat wheat knowing that it's safe because we have eaten it for centuries, for millennia. But now, in 2025, in this rapidly changing world, we see that new risks have arisen that we could not have accounted for before. Also, let's think of all the way science has progressed. The safety checks that have been done pre-market for these staple foods in 1997 may not definitely be up to date, as we have said in our first argument, with the safety assessments that we need now. For example, think of nitrates in processed meat. So we have always known that they've been there, and we have deemed them safe for a long time. But just now, modern studies have discovered a strong link between them and cancers. Or think about new chemical discoveries that we can make. For example, acrylamide in fried foods. It wasn't discovered until 2002. And we could have went eating that without knowing of the risks. We need that chemical safety right now in this world. We need it. We don't just need post-production checks, which is true. We do need those. They are important. But we will not letting them go. The checks that we do have right now work for post-production risks, but they do not work for pre-production risks, chemical risks, and we can see that the chemical composition of foods, as I have said, is impacted. But we will not solely be relying on these new novel food checks. Of course not. No one has ever said, and the motion does not say that we would need to let go of these current checks. We just need to put all of these foods through these controls, through these novel food controls. Why? Because modern risks have arose, and so we need to have modern checks for them. And also, there also been a point of clash about education and information. Now, by discovering new risks, new chemical risks in food, we will need to make the information public. People would need to know this food is risky. We have done this control. We have seen that this food is risky. People would find out about it instead of just keep going on and eating these things, thinking they are safe because they were deemed safe in the past. And that would cause a scandal, as, for example, the second speaker has said. Many times, foods that have been considered safe not being safe cause a scandal. People know about them. People are informed about them. Those are causes of information. Also, we need to talk about health as a value. That has also been a point of clash. And I think that a value of our team is health, because health benefits would always outweigh the cost. Even long-term, objectively, they would. For example, Think of all the public health burdens that we would miss if we put in the safety, if we thought about that 20% that is at risk, that we know is at risk. We need to think about those people. We need to care about them and think of all of the money that would not go to public health in the sense that, like, think of all the money that would not be spent by these people in health in general because of the new safety. Also because of the new safety. Also, Optim has mentioned the many different variations of staple foods. That is exactly why we need these new controls, why we need modern checks. We live in a modern world with modern risks. We need modern checks. Also, we have precedents. We have precedents for putting every food through these controls in 2015. So the entire argument about small businesses not being able to sustain this does not stand once we know that they have gone through this 10 years ago, which might not seem like such a long time, but in the context of climate change, in the context of all of these changes that the world is going through, is actually a very long time. We need to redo these checks. And like we have done in the past, like we have sustained in the past, we will be able to bear them. Small businesses have not disappeared. We can still talk about them. We can still buy things from them, even though they went through these checks. And they came out stronger on the other end for it, because again, it's a win-win situation. Going back to health, historically, better population health has led to better and more profitable times, has led to new discoveries, has led to even new foods, new recipes, finding out new things. We need the population to be healthy, we need the population to be happy, and we need the population to trust us and be informed. So yes, even if we will need to bear these costs, we can do it, we can bear it, we have done so before. And we do need to be able to find out about these new risks that can arise because of climate change, or for example, new toxins that are used in food or new fertilizers. Or also we can think about the fact that there is global sourcing for many foods that were considered staples, and so there's also risk that we do not know about the production there, in the sense of like how they are made. I don't know, wheat, for example, how it is made to grow, which fertilizers are used. That also influences the chemical composition, and that would be checked by these controls. And in a rapidly changing world, we need to adapt these controls. We cannot stop these assessments. The industry is changing, the environment is changing, and the controls need to be changing too, and we need to use the most modern controls we can. And that is why it is necessary, and the opposition team sustains this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bianca. Your speech was of 6 minutes and 55 seconds. May I now leave the floor back to Emma for your further speech as an opposition. Thank you.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Good evening again. I'm Emma Patriarca, and I'll be the third speaker of the opposition side. What this debate comes down is a simple mistake that, in our opinion, is made by the proposition. They are treating food safety as it were mainly a problem of scientific ignorance, when in reality is a problem of operational failure. As my team already proven, Europe already runs one of the most tight controlled food systems in the world. For example, we have continuous inspections, real-time testing, traceability, and over 1 million controls every year on every kind of product on the market. The European safety assessment that we have today is not a passive system. It is a live surveillance network. So when the propositions say that Europe never really certificate food, what they're really doing is trying to redefine certification in a way that ignores food risks that emerge during time. Because according to EFSA and ECDC themselves, over 80% of food safety crises do not come from food being chemically unsafe at the moment they enter the market, but they become a risk because of what happens during time. For example, food become a risk for poor hygiene, contaminated water that is used during irrigation, illegal pesticide use, broken cold chains, and even bad form of management of the food and food transportation. These are not failures of the scientific assessment, they are failures of behavior and operation. And this is where the proposition model actually collapses. A novel food assessment asks, what is this food made of? But the real food crisis asks, what happened to this food during time? No pre-market toxicological testing can tell whether a factory will stay clean during time, whether a farmer will misuse chemicals or use the pesticide illegally, whether transport refrigeration will fail, or whether irrigation water will be contaminated during time. Extending the novel food assessment to all food, it's not just inefficient, it's also misdirected. They are putting resources in a tool that targets the smallest category of risk, that is the chemical uncertainty of this food, while the vast majority of harm comes from somewhere else, like we said, during time. Now, let's talk about the most dangerous claim, that this system will increase safety, because what is really created is false security. When regulators and consumers hear every food that has passed scientific certification is safe, they naturally assume that this food is completely safe. But this is not true. Pre-market certification, like I said, but I will repeat again, does not monitor hygiene, does not prevent contamination, does not control farms, does not regulate transport, and does not enforce sanitation. This policy creates a confronting label without covering the risks that actually kill people and cause outbreaks. And this is worse than doing nothing, because the novel food safety assessments shift attention away from inspections, water testing, microbiological surveillance, and also enforcement. Exactly the areas that already work with the European safety assessment and that actually are able to stop crisis. The proposition wants to tell us that science will save people and will make food completely safe. But food safety in Europe is already scientific. It's just scientific in the right places, during production, during storage, transport, and also during sale. Not only at the moment of authorization. Because proposition is confusing certification and protection, and those are not the same thing. So let's weight these two things. Even if the system that the proposition
POI.
side, yes, I accept.
You agree with the fact that it worked in 2015. Why wouldn't it work in the future, like in this moment?
I didn't really understand what worked in 2015.
Well, we have just done this operation in 2015, but you're saying that it won't work in this moment right now in 2056.
Okay, so I think you're talking about the novel food assessment. Yes, okay. So I'm not saying that the novel food assessment is not working. I'm saying that it concentrates on not the most important thing. The novel food assessment concentrates on the chemical uncertainty of foods that don't have historical consumption. The European safety assessment also checks the chemical safety of foods, but the thing that the novel food safety assessment doesn't do is controlling the production, storage, transport, and sale of different products, especially not products that don't have historical consume, but also products that we don't know. So, like I was saying, even if the system that the proposition side is proposing work perfectly, at best it would marginally reduce rare chemical uncertainties. But it would overload the EFSA, it would slow innovation, it will only raise costs, especially for small businesses, and most importantly, it would distract from the real battlefield of food safety, that is daily enforcement and daily checks about the complete safety of the foods that we are eating and that are sold to us. The policy of the proposition team is expensive, slow, and badly targeted. The status quo, so the European safety assessment, is fast, adapted,
Yeah.
and no, sorry, don't accept, and already focused on the danger areas. This motion is not about making food safer, it's about making food safety look more scientific. But safety does not come from certificates. It doesn't come only from science, and it doesn't come only from certifications. It comes from clear factories, honest farms, safe waters, and also working inspections that are done different times during time. So with that, I end my speech.
Thank you, Emma. Your speech was of 7 minutes and 20 seconds of length. Thank you all for this debate. And then going towards the end, may I give the floor to Rebecca for the first reply from the opposition.
Thank you. I start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I would like you to imagine two words. One where the novel food state assessment has been applied to everything, to every food. The other hours where there are controls on food which are already available now, but also we are saving resources and using them for procedures controls on operations where in the supply chain where foods are produced. And in the novel food in the world where novel food in the proposition world, people are finding less food on shelves, and costs are rising because foods are less because of the controls that have been applied to the foods, which need a lot of time. And people are searching for foods that are less expensive, and so are finding the less expensive which are less safer. Instead, in our world, people are finding all the foods, and yes, in any case, I think in every world there's still some cases where people feel unwell because of food. But in our world, the control is extended on everything, on the chemical composition of foods, but also on the procedures, and on the on the factory, and we are controlling everything, every company. Instead, in the proposition world, the resources are used to focus on chemicals properties of food, to check them, because we can say that products that all food annually circulate on the market are thousands, are many, have many variations. So when we extend novel food assessment, we need to we need to increase, we need to use more money, but also to create new laboratories, new places where we can control these foods. As I say, our group said before, HEFSA already had taken controls and checks on foods, and it took 2.5 years to control almost 100 items. But now we are talking of much more items, like thousands, and what we are saying is that we can't use our resources only to control this, because issues risks on food doesn't come only from it. So in our world, we are focusing also on safe procedures, and controlling also companies. And what we are proposing is a world where everything is oh, where everything is used, where every resources is used for everything, and not focusing on only an item. And with it, I finish my speech.
Thank you, Rebecca. Your reply was of 4 minutes and 24 seconds. And to end this debate, I'll leave the floor to Anna for the ending reply for the proposition team. Thank you.
Okay, so I will start in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay, what an inspirational debate. I thank the judges and also the opposition team for being with us. However, we come to an end, and also with a victory, because in this debate there were two parallel worlds. We saw a world that is full of disasters, famines. Practically, we are living in a prominent humanitarian emergency, and people die for what they eat. And that what is, opposition world showed the fallacies and the problem of our world, which is also logistics, scientific, educational. But what we need to remember is that our world is a solution. We saw in the European Safety Assessment done by EFSA a solution to our problem. It is a plan. So we presented something. We also showed that not all people are educated. So we have considered what our world is like, which needs to be restored. And people are relying on us to do this. So, judges, what we need more? We need to believe in our plan, even though it has, yes, fallacies, but it's still a plan. And also, we want to invest the money on public health, which has not to be underestimated. So we don't consider it as a waste, and we have also to consider the wholesome situation of people. So also the 20% of people, not only the majority, because all lives are important. And also, we faced this changing before in 2015. So we also saw the previous world, what was behind us. So history also just repeats causes and consequences, and we are sure that in 2015 it was successful. So it will be successful also in these times. And then also, we are kind of underestimating the power of studies, We have to prove the harms of the food in order to keep everybody safe. Because as well, we showed one of our target is to ensure everyone's safe without excluding also a little portion. And also we have to care about the real sources of the problem, which are plural. So we consider it as an ambiental, social, economic issue we are facing. And we saw all the solution to our problem in the world with the proposal we presented, thanks to European Safety Assessment. With this, I conclude my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for the concluding speech of this debate. Your speech was in this case of 4 minutes and 2 seconds. And may I give my compliments to each of the speakers for the debate you have delivered tonight. I will go with the other judges to the judges' room for some minutes in order for us to fill our ballots, and then we will come back to you to deliver our judgment. Thank you so much.